My friends, is gaming becoming racist? Are we being forced ideologies down our throats that we don't want within our video games from people that don't claim to be racist towards other people and may not have influence in the gaming industry? Yeah, well, within the past couple days, Sweet Baby Inc., a name that's been floating around in terms of gaming industry standards and inventing things for how we play our games, has been coming around into the limelight from people all across the world complaining about how they potentially have some problem with creating these games and ruining some of the stuff that we know and love. Now, to get a bit of a background on what Sweet Baby Inc. is and what they're doing, well, they're a company, the consulting company for video games that goes to these larger industries that are making other big name titles and talks to them about trying to include diversity into their video games and bringing in some new ideologies that could help make things a little bit more closer to home. Now, I want to say I encourage diversity in video games. I heavily believe that, especially in a society similar to that of the United States or England or any other Western culture that has a melting pot community, that diversity will include as many people from many different cultures as possible, especially within video games, to try and make it more accepting amongst other people. But once you start forcing this kind of idea and really laying it down on the people and really sort of rubbing it into the dirt to let people know that this thing exists, it turns people away. And it's not just in one side of the coin, it's the other side too. Pretty much anything that you're really cramming down people's throats will end up forcing people to not really be keen to what you're trying to sell them. And in the case of Sweet Baby Inc., a lot of people are assuming that their hand in the gaming industry is really trying to force this diversity, not just in the sense of color, but in terms of gender, in terms of creed, in terms of orientation. And people seemingly are getting tired of it, so much so that people are starting to create new groups that identifies when Sweet Baby Inc. has made or has had a hand in the video game development process, so that way they can steer clear from it. And it's caused some backlash on the other end too. People from Sweet Baby Inc. has come out saying things like, oh, we're getting harassed from these people because they are saying that people should not buy these games because of the ideals that they're trying to portray, and that those people need to be shut down. And then they get countered by showing that the fact that they really are just exactly what they think they hate, and showcasing all the racist tweets and just disgusting things overall, and their ideals on how they're trying to force ideology onto the gaming industry and essentially turn our games into political agendas.
If you're a creative working in AAA, which I did for many, many years, put this stuff up to your higher-ups, and if they don't see the value in what you're asking for when you ask for consultants, when you ask for research, go have a coffee with your marketing team and just terrify them with the possibility of what's going to happen if they don't give you what you want.
Now, I'm not saying that there aren't people that exist that do not approve of this because of race or religion or whatnot. There are definitely people that are so far bent that they're going to use those as crutches. I come from the standpoint of I don't care if a character is gay. I don't care if a character is of a different skin color or different religion. If the game itself is good and the story that is built around it is also very good too, then it's a good game. And I feel like most gamers would agree that if the game overall is great and doesn't try to subvert the entire purpose of what the game is and bolsters a healthy gaming community, then what's the problem? It's a great game. But the moment that you start introducing real world problems and real world ideologies and agendas that are so curtailed to a specific set of people, it doesn't just push people away from the entire concept of what you're trying to build, but it alienates them, because now it almost seems like you didn't make the game for everybody. You made the game for a specific set of people to understand, and then everybody else is just not going to be represented or even use the game in a sense of being able to understand how to play it. And then you can't blame them for not wanting to play the game because they don't relate to it or don't find it fun. And if you start going around saying something like, oh, they're harassing us because they're telling people to not play our game and you should shut them down, I'm sorry. That's very thin-skinned of you to say. It's definitely not an issue if you as a company are not capable of being able to produce something or partake in something that ends up being a good product. At the end of the day, that's just bad business. And if you're going to go out of your way to say, well, people are having problems with our product, therefore we should shut those people down, it's just blatantly wrong. Especially when you start including race into everything and stating how you don't care if somebody is of a lighter skin color than you. You don't care if somebody is of a different religion of you. Even if they're showing hate towards you, then they are obviously the problem. And the hate is, in a sense, a rejection at this point of your business, of your product. And because this is of a recent light and people really just opening their eyes now, especially because bigger IPs like the Suicide Squad Kills the Justice League has come into play and really subverted the entirety of all the heroes that have been involved and bolstered up mainly the female protagonists and all that stuff. And you can say, oh, women protagonists, blah, 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 and all that. You can make a great game with female characters, and they exist. Trust me, they do. But when you really shoehorn it into the storyline, people are going to get upset because now all you're doing is just creating a narrative that takes away from the overall perspective of what a video game should be and what a established character is. Come on now. You really think everybody enjoyed the fact that the Superman freaking died in the weirdest way possible? And you really think people enjoyed the fact that Batman died in the wimpiest way, most baby shit way possible? You can't tell me that there is one person who agreed that the Arkham Knight Batman, canonically Arkham Knight Batman, died like a punk on the park bench. You can't tell me that people enjoyed that. You can't tell me that people enjoyed the fact that the Flash died and then Captain Boomerang whips out his dick and starts pissing on him, and then they have a freaking 1-minute dialogue about how big freaking Captain Boomerang's dick is.
Show a little class, man. Holy shit. Congratulations.
Makes sense. The gods have cursed you in every other way.
You can't tell me that people enjoyed that game. And Sweet Baby Inc. being a part of that was a part of the whole consultation on how the characters communicated amongst one another. It says on their website. And I guess people opened their eyes because they needed somewhere to point, and they saw Sweet Baby Inc. was tied to that, and their name was tied to other games that were involved with some diversity, wokeness, and other strange modernistic concepts, and also with their interviews about forcing these concepts into the gaming industry.
And it was so nice, in fact, that I actually took my phone out and I was like, okay, I'm going to text a picture of this to my best friend and say, hey, isn't this cool? Like, the scene in the game is like one of the rare opportunities. And I got halfway through that text before I realized, oh, she's not going to see that because her shepherd wasn't a black woman. It was a white woman. And I was about to say, okay, I guess I won't send it, when I thought, no, because this is cool for me. And her response was that, like, oh, I haven't seen that enough either. That is really, really great for you and really, really cool to see. And so I talked to some other friends about it of various races, and they weren't all targeted by this moment. They weren't all black. And still, I realized that they were excited for me. They were excited just hearing me tell my story. And in Mass Effect, it's kind of an accidental form of representation, right? It's something that's a possibility, but it's not a guarantee if you didn't create that kind of character. But in telling all my friends this and realizing how excited they were, realizing how excited I was, I thought, like, wouldn't it be amazing if this bit of representation wasn't an accident?
But I think it extends beyond Sweet Baby Inc. Very clearly, they are a part of the problem, but I don't think they are the problem as a whole, because this is just one aspect outside of the gaming industry. You can't tell me that there's people within their own industries that also adhere to these topics. There's people definitely within these gaming companies that approve of these things that going forward. But it's not just the gaming industry itself, it's every industry. And I think people are only focusing right now on the gaming industry because this is our form of entertainment. This is what we use to escape the modern world. Think about all the TV shows that have had video game adaptations or adaptations of things that we know and love. Look, my two biggest examples right now is the Avatar Netflix TV series and then the Halo TV show. Both of those are pretty bad, and they have people within that are trying to force changes and flip the scripts and make these characters that we know and love into something different because they believe that it is best in the best interest of the company and of the consumer that this character needs to change, that this character needs to be something different than what we have grown accustomed to enjoying. And now switching this and saying, well, now you have to enjoy them in this light, and then you have to like it, and if you don't like it, then you're the problem. And it's like, no, I don't want that. This is I like Master Chief from Halo because he's the dude in a green suit of armor that gets a gun and shoots aliens and solves the problem and saves the day. I don't give a fuck about Master Chief who doesn't wear his armor, especially in the second season, and just wants to have sex with other people and gets manhandled by other people, gets picked up by the throat by Spartans, by other Spartans, it treated like a bitch. I'm sorry, that's not the character. And you want me to like this character. And if you tell me that I'm the problem because I don't like what you are developing for a character that I've grown to know and love, then I'm sorry, then I guess I'm the problem. And I feel like it's just a big back and forth of people saying that they don't want all these things to happen because it's just being forced down their throats, and other sides saying that you are the problem. This is supposed to happen. This is what's natural. Sweet Baby Inc. isn't forcing diversity. It's naturally happening. Well, I have to tell you this. If people are not happy, if people are telling you that this is not what they want, and there's tons of them saying that, isn't natural? Because if it was natural, they would be accepting of it. If it was a natural process and diversity was to be included into this, which can happen and does happen, but when it happens in a way that is forceful, it is not natural, therefore it is not accepted by some people. And it alienates those people who don't accept it. When the entire purpose of creating some form of entertainment is to try and draw people in, to make sure that everybody is included and will be willing to enjoy the game to their pleasure. Therefore, by you saying that this is a natural process and people out on the outside are pushing back, then you're lying. So then the question begs, how does something like this become natural? How do we naturally create diversity in video games? And to be fair, the only real way to do that is you need a really good writing team. You need a really good writing team. You need a really good choreographed team to put together the cinematics, the storyline, the character growth and development, and the way how the characters look. And if you can blend that all in together, then people are going to go through seamlessly. They're not going to be like clutching their pearls or dying of cringe. If the story itself is a beautiful natural course, then they're going to be willing and accepting of it. I put money down that the majority of gamers would rather have a diverse game that is one that takes the universe in that it's trying to create and build its own world, rather than take so many allegories from our own real world and try and push down the problems and hammer it into the game and remind us of what's going on outside. We know the problems of the real world. We don't want that within a video game. And I'm not saying video games like that shouldn't exist. If somebody wants to make a video game that curtails to the problems of the real world, they should be more than welcome to create that game. But they should also be aware that there are going to be people who may not support it. Like, you can make a game about the problems going on within Palestine, but Israelis may not want to buy the game because they may not adhere to the sentiments. Should the person who made the game about all the plights of going on with the Palestinians be angry at the Israelis for not liking the game, you know what you got yourself into. You know what you've created. And I think the same applies to all these other game studios that are the inherent problems, and then other studios like Sweet Baby Inc., who further bolster the issue by creating these narratives within the video games that we want to play, and then get this backlash from us gamers saying, oh, well, they're alt-right, white, straight males that don't accept diversity, when the real thing is that we do. Is just what you're giving us is crap. So what's it boil down to? It just boils down to just poorly made games. At the end of the day, a poorly made game will not bring people in, and the poorly made game will have many problems that come with it. You think Suicide Squad is a good game as a whole? No. If the gameplay of the game was improved, like if it was just a good game overall and it still had the crappy story, it's still a bad game. But if a game like Helldivers, for example, where the gameplay is great and the little pseudo story that goes on behind it is satirical and comical and brings people together from many different races and cultures and religions, come on. You can't tell me that a game that has a huge IP fails because it hits so many things that it tries to force down people's throats, and then another game that has nothing to do with anything and takes aspects of parodizing things like Starship Troopers or other like things within our own world and makes it into something that isn't so serious, because the entire point of the game is to play the game, not be given ideology. So from video games to TV shows to every other form of entertainment, the real world is that there's always going to be people out there who have a narrative that they want to push, and they are going to do their best to try and push it. And if you push back, then you're the problem. When the reality should be that people can have their opinions about the real world and create a form of entertainment with it. But what you should not do is force your toxic ideologies upon people. And yes, I'm saying toxic for someone who, or some group that tends to be leaning a little bit towards the left, toxic ideologies onto these people and force them to like it, when the reality is that they're not going to ever want to stay anywhere close to something like that, and then dub them the problem. I think us as a community is really opening their eyes to it as of recent. The problem has been there for a long time, but at the end of the day, what we need to do is realize that the power is within us. We have a voice. We can let people know that some games exist that you might not want to buy, and you end up voting for whatever game you think deserves to be there with your wallet. At the end of the day, when you determine who you give money to, and if you don't want to give money to these companies because you don't agree with them, then that sucks for the companies. They either have to adapt or they can cry until they get their Twitters locked. But that's pretty much it for me. If you like this kind of content, leave a like, all that stuff, comment down below, subscribe to the channel. I'll catch all of y'all later. Peace.